What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review an EP by Ghostfire. Basically, this project is called The Last Steampunk Waltz, and it came out in early 2010. Now, back in 2021, Jackal Goldkick kind of introduced me to this project, and it was pretty dope, and I liked the sound of what I heard of it back in those days. But 2 years later, I wanted to see more full-blown what this project is really about. So I messed with it again. I wanted to see more hands-on about this project as far as that kind of goes. So it's just kind of the concept about this. This is a very brief project. In some cases, there's folks that kind of say that this is more of like a single release, not so much an EP. But I'm just going to kind of consider it an EP just because it does have multiple songs on here. Just a brief 2 songs, but that's still enough to kind of warrant saying that it's worth getting a review as far as that's kind of concerned. I do like this particular subgenre. I don't really know a thing about steampunk that much. This is about the initial backdrop I've had with steampunk as far as that's kind of concerned. But Ghostfire is kind of folks from London who kind of did some steampunk festivals and that type of stuff throughout Europe and some of those type things. They did that throughout 2009, 2010, the early 2010s and stuff. They apparently had like some demo tapes and stuff like that. I don't know a ton about their catalog, and I've really only listened to like the 2 songs by them as far as that's kind of concerned. But apparently they have some other stuff. They've been dropping singles recently and that type of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see if they could get some hits on the sides because apparently the last Steampunk Waltz, the title track, was like a huge song and it really tore up Europe back in the early 2010s as far as that's kind of concerned. It's a nice little gem as far as that kind of goes. I definitely say it's a nice little bop. It's just kind of outlandish and it's just kind of a breath of fresh air as far as how heavy hitting that it kind of is. It's kind of interesting to get this sort of one just because I don't really know a thing about steampunk, but I would have to say it seems kind of like the medieval type festivals as far as that kind of goes. And a lot of this just feels like saloon music. This really feels like a lot of this just kind of feels like saloon music, this kind of bar hopping, pub crawls type stuff, just in a more European sense as far as that kind of goes. Just the sort of stuff that you would see just with jukeboxes and some of those type moments, just organ pianos and some of those type moments as far as that. It's pretty much, I mean, it's a pretty good these are some pretty good gems on here, but I do think it's a pretty large sin that there's only 2 songs on here because I do think Ghostfire had a particular niche that they carved out pretty well, and it was just interesting to see them nail both of these songs and then kind of wonder what could have happened if they had done a couple more. It's definitely kind of the concept as far as getting some more of these just within that context. But to talk about the songs on here, both these songs I recommend. So it's an easy kind of 1-2 punch victory, I would have to say. Both these are pretty excellent songs just to be able to say that. So the last Steampunk Waltz, which is basically the single, is kind of a ghastly chandelier-like haunt of a pub song, I would say. It's elegant, but it's kind of crisply chilling. It's just kind of a nice, I really like the elegance of this song. This is a great song to listen to in October. Just really has some shrill and kind of chilling overall feels as far as that kind of goes. Just a nice one. Both of these songs kind of feel like pub crawls and that type of stuff as far as just being at like saloon type places with beer mugs and some of that type of stuff. They're very much party songs, but they're just kind of more European outlandish. These are not like club joints and kind of more dance club type affairs, but they're just kind of like saloon type interests or something you'd think of when you think of London, like in the early 1930s and the early 1920s. A lot of this stuff is just retro. It just feels like music that you would have listened to back in like 1915 or 1925 or something like that. It's just interesting. This with the organ pianos and all that type of stuff. I really like the kind of shrill, kind of chandelier like piano keys on the last Steampunk Waltz. So that's a really nice one. And then to talk about Hand to Glory, basically Hand to Glory is like a drunken pub crawling spook of a song, I would say. It has grim elegance about it and the murkiness is infectious. So this is one. Hand of Glory is more kind of one that has a little bit more party vibes about it, a little bit more shrill and kind of loosened up. I would definitely say I like the concept of this one. It's a little bit less tight knit than the last Steampunk Waltz, but I would definitely say that both these are pretty good ones to kind of have. This one's just kind of a more drunken one. They're both kind of saloon songs, like I was saying. This is just kind of more of like a bass heavy kind of one that just kind of has that looming kind of ghoulish feel about it. It's just very both of these are just great songs, like I was saying, for just the October, November kind of fair as far as autumn music and just kind of grim and chilling type autumn music. This basically works extremely well for cooler weather, this kind of more ghoulish kind of atmospheres as far as that kind of goes. These are just good ones. Definitely have the appreciation for it. So just to kind of wrap that up about this particular project. So I'm going to give this EP, despite the fact that there's only 2 brief songs, I do have to say it's a pretty large sin that there's just not more. Just to have kind of seen what I do think it's a pretty large sin that there's not more than 2 songs, just because I feel like Ghostfire really nailed it extremely well as far as that's kind of concerned. I just would have wondered how their sweet spot could have been manifested further if we had seen that. But I would have to say I'm going to give this EP like a 10 out of 10. The social score, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10 because these are both pretty social songs and they're kind of more saloon like and more pub crawling type fare in like a European and kind of steampunk and kind of outlandish rock kind of sense. But I just would have to say the reason why it's getting a 9 is just because there's only 2 songs, and they probably should have capitalized on this a little bit further. It would have been a pretty massive thing to have seen if they could have done that as far as that's kind of concerned. Both these songs are just that good to be able to say that they just, it's kind of a larger sin just in the fact that they didn't have more kind of aspects to kind of deliver upon and get those kind of fleshed out as far as that's kind of concerned. But it's a 9 social. In terms of the future, like I was saying, Ghostfire does have some other projects out and about. It's kind of low key as far as that's kind of concerned. I think the last Steampunk Waltz is one of their largest songs, but they did have other hits. They're just kind of more across London and Europe and some of those type things. So we'll have to see about some more of these as far as that's kind of concerned. But they have been active as of 2022 and 2023. They're supposedly working on some new music. We'll see about that. I just have to wonder if they have any other hits besides some of this stuff on here, because this is a good hit project. It's just very brief and short and sweet, which is kind of, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It's good because you don't have to worry about like filler, but it's bad just because I think they probably could have nailed more than 2 songs. That's kind of the thing about it.